Out on a bright May morning to view the meadows and flowers gay. Who should I spy but my own true lover, as she sat under yon willow tree? I took off my cap and I did salute her. I did salute her most courageously. When she turned around, sure the tears fell from her. Sing false young man, you've deluded me. For to delude you, how can that be, my love? It's from your body I am quite free. I'm as free from you as a child unborn is. And so are you, my love Jane, from me. A diamond ring I own I gave you, a diamond ring to wear on your right hand. But the vows that you made, love, you went and you broke them, and married the lady that had the land. If I married the lady that had the land, my love, it's that I'll rue until the day I die. When misfortune falls, there's no man may shun it. I was blindfolded, I'll ne'er deny. Now at night when I go to my bed of slumber, thoughts of my own true love run in my mind. When I turn around to embrace my darling, instead of gold, sure 'tis brass I find. Now I wish that the Queen would recall her armies from the West Indies, America and Spain, and every man to his wedded woman, in hopes that you and I would meet again.
Hello, my friends. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing tonight? Can I get some confirmation in the chat that that y'all can hear me? Any confirmation in the chat before we get started on the topic? Just waiting for a single. Oh, we're getting an echo. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Is the echo... Is it better now? How's it sound now? Still doubled up, or has it been fixed? 5x5, doubled audio, slight echo. Still a slight echo. It's gone. It's fixed. Okay, good. Good. So, today, I would like to talk to you about the state of Ireland, the current state of Ireland, the overall condition of Ireland, I should say. The denationalization, as Keith Woods puts it, the destruction of the traditional Irish national identity, bringing Ireland into the fold of the multicultural New World Order, so to speak. And I'm going to be disagreeing with him because the post that he made here on Twitter, which I found through Thultide, Keith Wood's overall idea seems to be that this process of bringing Ireland into the New World Order values, the multicultural, anti-traditional, degenerate values of the New World Order. The cause of that, according to Keith Woods, is basically profit. The motive is financial profit by Western neoliberal capitalists. And so we'll read through what he said. We'll read what Thultide said. And we'll talk a bit about why I disagree with this overall theory from Keith Woods, and what I propose as an alternative to explain what's going on here. And I think it has been done for ideological reasons. It has been done by exactly the sorts of entities which Keith Woods denies, such as the World Economic Forum or some other cabal. So let's just read what Woods says here. Keith Woods said on Twitter, "The Irish Mail published the names of the landlords and businesses which have been paid to provide accommodation for the ongoing plantation of Ireland by foreign men. The sad reality of Ireland's denationalization is it was a choice by the ruling business elite. Right-wingers like to cope by blaming cultural Marxism, the World Economic Forum, or some other cabal for our destruction. But in almost any Western nation, it could have all been resisted if native money power had the will." So first of all, using the word cope to describe theories blaming cultural Marxism or the World Economic Forum or some other cabal, as he puts it, I don't see how that's a cope. I don't see how that helps anybody, even if it wasn't true. I don't see how it could be considered a cope to have a theory like that, because it doesn't make you feel any better. It doesn't make it feel justified. It doesn't make it feel okay. Coping is when you try to make something feel okay. But anyway, pseudo-intellectual right-wingers in the Anglosphere with little knowledge of Ireland blame Sinn Féin, Marxism, or anti-colonialism for Ireland's transformation, despite the fact that Sinn Féin has never been in government in the South and has negligible influence until recently. They became open borders when they threw off the last vestiges of Irish nationalism and embraced all the values of the West's hegemonic liberal pluralism. We're going to talk about this too. Liberal pluralism. I should have made a meme where it's liberal pluralism, cultural Marxism. They are the same picture type of meme. The LGBT agenda, abortion, and mass replacement migration were overseen in Ireland by uninterrupted rule of centrist, neoliberal political parties for decades, alongside their embrace of free trade and finance capitalism. Not a Marxist among them. So it seems like here Woods is sort of proposing that unless somebody is self-identifying as a Marxist, that they're not Marxist. That they have to be like academically, trained in this very specific interpretation of Marxist theory, or else they're not true Marxists. And I think he does that because he himself has Marxist tendencies, and he wants to sort of like separate what he's calling hegemonic liberal pluralism, the sort of paused New World Order values of egalitarianism, multiculturalism, etc. He wants to separate Marxism from those things because he himself is sort of a Marxist apologist, or he wants to rehabilitate Marxism. That's what it seems to me. The truth is white Western elites believe in all the same fantasies of racial and gender egalitarianism, pluralism, and materialism, values which Western capitalist elites have embraced for at least half a century. They like having millions of young, non-white young men, do a little proofreading when he posts these, in their lands. More workers, more consumers, more tenants. No doubt the landlords, being paid millions by the state to facilitate the Great Replacement, convince themselves they are good humanitarians helping the underprivileged. Connor says, is Keith not correct? No, he's not correct, and we're going to explain why here. The first thing that I just said was these values, gender egalitarianism, pluralism or multiculturalism, materialism, values which Western capitalist elites have embraced for at least half a century, shows how narrow Keith's view is on these things. Because, look, as I've done many videos on in the past, the distinction between so-called Western capitalist elites and literal communists, like in Russia and China, the Soviet Union and China, basically fall apart when you learn how interconnected they were at the top, and how Marxism and communism, straight up communism, were created, supported throughout their entire existence. And fundamentally, Marx himself was bankrolled by so-called capitalists. Look at my video that I did on Marx. So there's, at the very top, there's no difference between the Marxist, communist, socialist, so-called left, and the finance capitalists of what he's calling Western neoliberalism. They're intertwined in so many ways at the top that it's basically impossible to distinguish between them. And using these kinds of like hair-splitting ideological differences is basically, you're not seeing the forest for the trees. If that, I don't know exactly how that. I always kind of mess up that saying, but you're focused on these tiny little details without seeing the big picture. Which, look into Anthony Sutton's work, where he shows how the communists were bankrolled by the so-called Western capitalists. Look at the video I did on Marx, showing that he was bankrolled by so-called capitalists. Look at the video I did on China, showing how their entire economy was basically created by so-called Western capitalists. So this like distinction between neoliberal, pluralist, capitalists of the West and the leftist, Marxist communists is basically an imaginary distinction when you get to the very highest levels of who is pushing these agendas. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, just at face value, is it a fact that this unending wave of migration into Ireland is actually benefiting financially the country? And Thultide, here in this thread where he talks about where he makes a response to Woods, he says, if mass migration was motivated by profit and consumerism, the ruling class would be importing intelligent, productive demographics that make positive economic contributions, and not welfare sponges and incompetent people who make Boeing 747s explode midair. And he links to another thread that he did showing that, in fact, this unending stream of migrants is not financially benefiting these countries. It's not making the countries a better place. And this, it can't be chalked up to like, oh, they're just doing an experiment and maybe they thought that there would be a different outcome. This has been going on for decades now. The cost has been, like he says here, from 95 to 2019, from 95 to 2011, just about every single country that has taken millions of migrants is paying a huge cost, especially at the expense of the native people. It is not benefiting the native people. Okay? So, let's see. Art says, this is an incomplete analysis. Well, let me know what you think I'm missing here, because I'm going to get into some more things. Let's actually get into the details of what these companies are saying about themselves, because Woods is making this argument that, you know, they're doing it for more workers, more consumers. They're getting paid. They're financially benefiting from this mass migration. Is it really about their stock, like increasing the bottom line or improving the bottom line for their stockholders? Let's look at some of the biggest companies in Ireland and see what they say about themselves. Are the biggest companies of Ireland led by and working under policies that are explicitly influenced deeply at their core values by critical theory, cultural Marxist type talking points, values, axioms? Is that the case? Well, I looked into a list of the biggest companies in Ireland, and we're going to look at two of the biggest here. We're going to look at CRH, Public Limited Corporation, I think that's what PLC stands for, and Accenture, two of the biggest companies in Ireland. And we're also going to look at the Bank of Ireland, which seems like a very important financial institution in Ireland. What are these companies saying about themselves? First of all, Accenture, which is Fortune 100's number 1 biggest company in Ireland, Forbes number 2 biggest company in Ireland. Accenture is run by a woman named Julie Sweet, originally Spellman. So I think we can safely assume that this is a you-know-who. Spellman is a very you-know-who-ish sounding name. I would guess that there's a lot of you-know-who-ish Spellman out there, but that's besides the point. Julie Sweet is the CEO of Accenture. Once again, one of the biggest companies in Ireland. And let's see what she says, what it says about her. Sweet has advocated for diversity, inclusion, and workplace gender parity. Sweet supports Accenture's goals to have a staff equally represented by men and women by 2025. As of 2019, 42% of Accenture's staff was female. Now, if they were truly these, liberal types that weren't informed by critical theory, Marxist ideas, would they be attempting to have an equal representation of men and women? Is that really the best way to run a company? Is to always have this gender quota to fill? This sort of diversity, equity, inclusion type of agenda in the company? I don't think so. If making money is your bottom line, then this type of thing is really, it has no place in the company. Sweet was named a top CEO for diversity by the website Comparably in 2019. She has called for addressing the skills gap in the United States and supported the national apprenticeship movement. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's an important part. In addition to her work at Accenture, Sweet served on the boards for Catalyst, which is a feminist nonprofit run by a you-know-who named Schwartz, the World Economic Forum, and the Business Roundtable, where she chairs the Technology Committee, and the Center for Strategic and International Studies, and the Marriott Foundation for People with Disabilities. So here we already have one of the biggest companies in Ireland, run by a woman, connected with the World Economic Forum. Is it really fair to say that it's just a cope to blame something like the World Economic Forum when pretty much the biggest company in your country is led by a CEO that is connected with the World Economic Forum? Is that just a cope? And what is this Center for the Strategic and International Studies? Well, that company here is a think tank in Washington, D.C., led by... Where is it? They're also, by the way, connected with the UN. Led by... Where was it? It was a Pritzker. Where is it? Seriously? I just had it. Here we go. Chairman Thomas Pritzker, a member of the Pritzker billionaire family. And if you don't know the billionaire Pritzker family, J.B. Pritzker is the governor of Illinois. He's got a tranny brother. They are they're, you-know-who-ish, extremely ideologically motivated. So, right here, top company in Ireland, connected with the World Economic Forum, connected with the Pritzkers and their ideological agendas. So that's number one. Let's go to the next one. The CRH, this is a building materials company in Ireland, centered in Dublin. Extremely big company. It's for Cement Roadstone Holdings. Huge company in Ireland. And right there on their website, CRH, they have a little video, but we're not going to watch the video. Here on their inclusion and diversity page, why inclusion and diversity is important to us. We want our employees to feel valued and empowered. So here, our inclusion and diversity vision. What's up, Didymus? Nice to see you in the chat. Our inclusion and diversity vision. We are committed to building an organization where inclusion is a core leadership value and where talented people of all backgrounds are welcome and differences are embraced. Everyone has a fair and equal opportunity to develop and progress. Our working environment supports people in being themselves and performing their best. Inclusion, diversity, all the ways in which we are similar and the ways in which we differ. When we speak about diversity, we mean people of different backgrounds and people with different characteristics, including age, disability, ethnicity or race, gender, religion, and sexual orientation. Black girl on the oil rig, hyper-realistic, yeah. But this is just about getting the best people for the job. This is just about making money, Didymus, don't you know? Why inclusion comes first. Inclusion comes first. Not profit, not making money. Inclusion comes first. Inclusion first allows us to attract diverse talent and allows diverse voices to be heard. An inclusive culture helps employees fulfill their personal objectives and maximizes their potential, irrespective of gender, race, creed, sexual orientation, or disability. I mean, this sounds like Marxist critical theory. A message from their Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer. Our ambition is to be an organization with a truly inclusive culture. Anyway, you guys get the picture. So this is the second biggest company in Ireland. And by the way, we're not going to watch the whole video, but there's just one clip in the video where they just had to do it. They just had to do it. Where is it? Am I thinking of a different video? It's full of black and brown people, by the way, and in one... There. They just had to include an interracial couple. Black man with a white woman. It's like they had to put that in, even though it's just a couple frames in the whole video. They just had to throw that part in there. So that's CRH, the second biggest company in Ireland. Now we move on to and CRH, by the way, is run by Richie Boucher, who used to be the CEO of the Bank of Ireland. Okay, so now let's go to the Bank of Ireland. Pretty important financial institution for your country. The Bank of Ireland appoints Matt Elliott as the Chief People Officer. Okay, and I got a few tweets from Matt Elliott here. This Chief People Officer, basically the diversity and inclusion officer for the bank. What a privilege it is to visit number 10 today to discuss pay gap and diversity ideas. Straight up cultural Marxist. Cultural Marxist ideas. Pay gap, that's critical theory. I mean, that's cultural Marxism. So exciting. Left feeling supercharged about the progress being made and the positive influence that business can have on our society. Not the profits, not the money, the positive influence. That's what these people are leading with, okay? Loved speaking about diversity at LM Appeal yesterday. More than ever, business needs to be a force for good in society, okay? A force for good. This is coming from the Bank of Ireland. Okay, so you can argue that, they're just doing this for profit, they're doing this to make money, it's all just capitalistic, but what they're telling you to your face is it's not about profit, it's not about money, it's about being a force for good, for change, for progress. This is what they're saying, okay? So you can argue that, behind the scenes, they don't care about any of this. They just want money. It's just good for their money, blah, blah, blah. But the important thing to remember is that the Irish people were not convinced. They were not persuaded. Their arms were not twisted by ideas of financial benefit. That's never the argument that has been used to basically manufacture consent amongst the public, to allow this thing to happen. Because if they did use an argument like that, if these institutions were telling the public, look, really the bottom line is bringing these migrants in is going to be better for the country because it's going to make us more money. You know, if they were telling that to people, it would become extremely evident almost immediately that that was not working, that was not really happening. And if that's the key argument that they're making, the key justification that they have, it would fall apart instantly. So really, the subversive, the important subversive element that has persuaded, manufactured this consent amongst the public to allow this to continue has been the cultural Marxist values and sort of system of ideas that they are promoting. This idea that it's for the good of society, it's for fairness, for equality, for progress. All cultural Marxist ideas. So, of course, he's all about the gays. Very proud. Pay using the new rainbow card. And finally, need better dialogue on ethnicity equality to make necessary progress. We have ambitious plans for 2017. Once again, progress. Ethnic equality. This is not a, liberal capitalist framework of we're trying to get just the best people for the job. No, this is, we want ethnic equality. We want progress for society. Okay, this is from the Bank of Ireland. And speaking of the Bank of Ireland, here is, I think, the most important aspect of all of this. Woods is basically arguing that the main driver, the main mover of this trend, of these, the so-called denationalization of Ireland, of the replacement of traditional Irish culture and values with the globo homo, cultural Marxist values. The main driver of this is, as he says, the ruling business elite. Whereas I would argue the main driver, the most important thing, is policies coming out of the government regarding education. You don't convince the masses just with business propaganda, basically. You have to get them young, and you have to get them in the classrooms. And that's the most important thing you can do if you want to change a society. If you want to have a quick revolution, if you want to make this kind of quote-unquote progress in society, you have to get to the hearts and minds of the children. And you do that in schools. So what's going on with the Irish education system? Well, there's a little organization out there called Educate Together. Educate Together. It's an educational charity in Ireland, which is the patron body to equality-based, co-educational, child-centered, democratically run schools. I've talked about the IBS, International Baccalaureate World Schools, that are happening in the United States before. Years ago, I talked about them. This is basically Ireland's equivalent to the IBS World Schools. Okay. Here's a quote from the President of Ireland. "There can be no doubt that as a society we have traveled far from the Ireland of 1978 when the Educate Together movement first took root. Today, that pioneering vision has taken its rightful place in our education system, growing, flourishing and enabling a further generation of citizens to benefit from the generous and participative ethos which defines Educate Together. And you might look at the Wikipedia page and say, oh, but they only have 90 schools in Ireland. There's only about, like 35,000 people or 35,000 students in all their schools. It's not the majority of Irish schools that are under this Educate Together program. But as I just showed you, and as we'll see in their little pamphlet here, Educate Together's Strategic Plan 2022 to 2026, they're growing rapidly, and they are supported by none other than the President of Ireland, who says that, their ethos, their whole ideology has taken its rightful place in our education system. So they might not control all of Ireland's schools, or even a majority of their schools, but it's their ethos being pushed from the top down that is influencing other schools that aren't even a part of their system. And let's just look at a little article that it was put out on Educate Together's website to give you an idea of what they're all about. Posted in July of 2020 on their website, Journeying Toward Anti-Racism in Our Schools. Hi, my name is Laura, and I'm privileged. How many conversations start this way? Very few, if any, but they should, particularly if we are about to share our opinion on something that we have little or no experience of, such as racism. Recently, there has been increased media reporting on experiences of racism in Ireland, including in our schools, but racism is not a new phenomenon in Ireland. It's been clear for some time that anti-racist education is important and necessary, but where to begin? Make a commitment to anti-racist education, acknowledge your privilege. If you are a white, settled Irish person living in Ireland, you experience privilege, even though it may not seem like it or be immediately obvious. White privilege doesn't mean your life hasn't been hard. It means your life hasn't been hard because you're white. Okay? This is coming from the government. This is basically coming from, stamped with the approval, pushed out into the public sphere, influencing the education system as a whole in Ireland. This is what we can blame, in my opinion. This is far more influential and important than business interests, because no matter what the business interests are, if the general public isn't primed in a certain way to accept it, if they aren't given a narrative, if they aren't given this system of values, this ideology that guilts them into accepting it, then they would have never accepted it. This is the type of thing that gets into the minds of the average person and makes them able to fall prey to the types of agendas that are being pushed, like the unending migration waves going into Ireland. And guess who was behind Educate Together? One of the main individuals responsible for Educate Together is a woman named, I don't know how to pronounce I'm not good with Irish pronunciation, but Aina Hyland. Okay? Aina Hyland. Emeritus Professor of Education and former Vice President of the University College Cork in Ireland. She was a civil servant in the Department of Education, and she worked for a period of time in the International Labour Office in Geneva, Switzerland, which also is connected with the International Baccalaureate system in the United States. So a lot of these things came out of, Geneva, connected with the UN, connected with the ILO. This is where they're coming out of. And the ILO, the International Labor Office, is, it was founded by a Marxist. Basically, this guy Albert Thomas was the first Director General of the International Labor Office, and he literally, after the Communist Revolution in Russia, he was sent to Russia to work with the provisional communist government on the production of munitions, helping them develop military munitions in an attempt by France to maintain cooperation with the new Russian Republic. So the International Labor Office, long history of Marxists, and now we've got this Irish woman working for them, coming back to Ireland, establishing this educational system which is supported by, funded by, authorized by the Irish government, given the stamp of approval by this little fucking leprechaun, Michael Higgins, the Irish president. Even he is just completely paused. He's used his time in office as president to address issues concerning justice, social equality, social inclusion, anti-sectarianism, anti-racism, and reconciliation. Okay. So this is what has allowed Ireland to undergo this transformation. You can't really, to try to put the blame on finance capitalists just trying to make profit and not see that there's this deep ideological motivation to all of this, deep ideological subversion that is creating the conditions where the people will accept such a transformation, is to me kind of absurd. And it's absurd for him to just hand wave away the idea that, a cabal, like the World Economic Forum, or like I just showed, the International Labor Office, the UN, these international shadowy organizations, to just hand wave those away and say that has nothing to do with it, is ridiculous. And I don't see why he's doing that. I don't see, it's a main thread in the story of how this has happened. And to just try to shift it to the idea that, they just want more workers, more consumers, more tenants. I find that just woefully wrong. It's disappointing to see. And when you go through things that like Educate Together plan on doing, one of their first pictures in their strategic plan draft, no child and outsider. They got more brown and black people in the photo than actual white people. In all the photos, it's like that. So obviously there's no ideology here at work. Insane. So that's about all I had prepared for the stream. Now let's see what you guys have said. Anon says, did you watch Leo Varadkar's gay bar kissing video? I don't think I'm going to be searching for gay bar kissing video. And I don't know who Leo Varadkar is. Sarah Murr says anti-racist means anti-white. That's very true. JD Morning Brothers. Good morning to you, JD. Inventor says, imagine in Israel anti-Gentile hatred being a thing. Let's see. So, I've been going about 45 minutes here. Varadkar is the PM of Ireland. Keep up. You know, I don't have enough time to keep up with Irish politics, but when I saw what Keith said, I just knew that it had to be wrong, so I did a little research. I'm not on top of everything, to be frank. But anyway, if you take anything away from this video, educate together is what I'd like for you to remember here, because they are, you know, this is how you change a society. This is how you really change a country, is by getting into the hearts and minds of the children through schooling. There's no other way really around it. There's no other propaganda that's as effective as education. And it's funny too, because when they first began, a conservative Catholic group in the area alleged that the new school was atheistic, divisive, and hostile to religion, and a precedent for major trouble in other areas. How right they were. Didymus says, lots of people want to be reductionists and stick to the big idea, whatever that may be. Yeah, liberal pluralism or whatever, whatever it might be. The way I see it is these ideologies are used to manipulate the public. The people at the very top, you know, the people who are really running the show, I don't think they're necessarily ideologically motivated. Their motivation is, I think, religious at the very highest level, and they basically just see themselves as fixing the world, being a light unto the world, and however they have to accomplish the agenda of achieving total power over the world, because that's, you know, if you want to fix the world, you have to have total power over the world. You can't fix something if you don't have power over it. Whatever gets them to that goal of total power is essentially, you know, fair game. So if in some contexts or some scenarios they push hardcore ideological Marxism, so be it. If in some contexts or scenarios it's better to push sort of a free market capitalism, so be it. You know, it depends on the context or the situation. What ideology? If you look at the ideology as like a tool, if you look at the ideology as a specific technique, for creating the conditions where the people will fall in line in the new system that they're trying to establish, then, you know, you start to see, I think, a clearer picture of how the elites operate. Wendell's Robes. Love listening, always comfy and good knowledge. My son, 19 months, so I need to figure out his schooling ASAP. He's also sick with a fever right now, so wish him luck. Sorry to hear that. I'm sure he'll be fine. Yeah, schooling, we're not gonna school our children. We're homeschooling. And yeah, that's something I've been thinking a lot about too, is creating some kind of curriculum. It's as of now, for preschool, we buy lesson plan. We've bought a lesson plan. We're going to be buying workbooks because the fact that it's preschool means that it's kind of hard for them to ideologically subvert the child. They're just too young. So it's all just, learning how to write letters, learning how to write numbers, learning the shapes, colors, etc. So there's not too much to worry about if you're buying like a preschool curriculum off the internet or a preschool workbook off the internet. But once you get to the higher grades, you have to start worrying about what the hell they're putting in those workbooks, what they're putting in the curriculum, the lesson plans. So, yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately about how to handle that, because it's hard to imagine, with all the busy work that we're already involved in it around the house, me working overtime every week, my wife taking care of the kids, etc. Which, by the way, I'm not going to make a big deal out of this or anything, but a little announcement. Little baby Germ number 3 is on the way. Little baby Germ is going to come in June, the 3rd little baby Germ. So we're going to be having 3 little baby Germs running around come June. So yeah, with all that is going around in the house, it's hard to imagine us sitting down and inventing from scratch a brand new curriculum or a lesson plan. And thank you all. Thank you. So yeah, it's hard to imagine going through all the work to create from scratch a whole lesson plan or workbooks or things for, structured learning for the child to benefit from. And so that's been bothering me, because I wish we had something in our spheres that could serve as at least an outline for a lesson, like an elementary school, grades 1 through 5 lesson plan. Because I think once they're past grade 5, you could just start giving them books to read. It could be a little less formal, but those elementary school years, I think kids really benefit from a formal and structured lesson plan. And so we've been thinking a lot about what we're going to do to accomplish that. Hippocratic Oath says Ron Paul has a homeschool curriculum. Nice. I'll check that out. I mean, it can't be as bad as anything else. So fellas, I didn't plan on having a very long live stream tonight. If you guys have questions, I'll answer them. Tyga Lane says, teach them the trivium, the classical European education that we've used for thousands of years. Yes, the trivium, logic, grammar, logic, rhetoric, but that's vague. I mean, grammar, logic, rhetoric, it's vague, it's open-ended, there's not enough specific content involved in something like that. So overall, yeah, I want my children to understand grammar, logic, and rhetoric, but the applications of grammar, logic, and rhetoric, it's the specific content that you apply it to, the specific facts and information that you're learning, is the issue. Wendell's Robe says, my son is a ginger as well. Nice. Hell yeah. We multiply. Schmuck Puppet says, here in the Netherlands, the Jews have virtually completely merged with the general population. Uh-oh. Yeah, the Netherlands had a huge, at least in Amsterdam, group of the you-know-who's. So, let's see. Now we've been going for almost an hour. I think Tyga Lane says, there are books on teaching the trivium as a homeschooler. No need to reinvent it all on your own. I'll check them out. I'll keep looking. My oldest is only 3 right now, so over the next couple of years, I hope I'll have something pretty nailed down to provide for her. Oh, I didn't talk about this link that I brought up. 100 Years of Inequality, Irish Educational Policy Since the Foundation of the State by Aine Hyland, the brain behind Educate Together. This article is full of social Marxist or social justice Marxism, critical theory type ideas. This is published in 2022. Education policy has not been underpinned by rigorous policy formation based on considerations of social justice. So obviously she wants to change that. Men Like God says, since you're a fan of First Millennium Revisionist on Un's review, I suggest reading Edwin Johnson's books, The Rise of Christianity and The Rise of English Culture. Let's see. Let's pull them up. Is there a Wikipedia page on this? Radical Criticisms of Christian Historiography. It's interesting. He asserts that Christianity had evolved from a Jewish diaspora movement he provisionally called the Hagioi, or Hagioi. They adhered to a liberal interpretation of the Torah with simpler rites, a more spiritualized outlook. Hagioi is a Greek word meaning the saints, the holy ones, the believers, the loyal followers, or God's people. Interesting. Yeah, I'll check them out. Well, all right, fellas. Let's wrap it up. Another post by Thultide following up with Woods. Landlords are being paid millions by the state to facilitate the Great Replacement. That doesn't sound very free market neoliberal capitalist. Gotta love Thultide. So and Martinez politics. Oh, if anybody knows Martinez politics or if he's watching this or anything, I messaged him suggesting that we have a conversation, and I'm just horrible about following up with people. I just have way too much on my mind, and I almost never look at Telegram, so I've forgotten to get back to him. I still would be interested in a conversation with him someday. Let's see what he has to say here. Keith himself admitted in this article, or in his article about Britain's immigration history, that Tony Blair opened the floodgates for ideological/political reasons and not economic ones. Yet he continues to push the neo-Marxoid line that it's all the fault of capitalists, landlords, and businessmen. His Marxist framing completely ignores how all his precious unions and socialist politicians are just as woke as any business owner and push all the same stuff through the public institutions. None of the parties that he calls neoliberal are actually such. They're all Keynesian welfarists. Let's see what he says here.
So let's have a look at the phenomenon of woke labor unions. The reason I bring this up is because there's a number of people who might try to convince you that all of the issues around wokeness and radical left ideology, that it all comes out of the free market, even though there's no such thing, and that it's all the responsibility of the corporations, it's woke capital. Now, there's a valid critique to make of woke capital, but let's look at the bigger picture here. If it's all just coming from there, then how do you explain how unions are just as woke as the corporations? The government is just as woke as the corporations. Unless you're to tell me that the corporations are controlling the labor unions, which doesn't make any sense, and that they're telling every single politician what to do, which doesn't make any sense considering there are many politicians who hate corporations like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren who are just as woke as the damn corporations. So let's look at some of these labor unions. So let's start off with the American Teachers Union, which is one of the most powerful unions in the country. And lo and behold, they vehemently support critical race theory. They defended their teachers using critical race.
And this is interesting that he uses the teachers union, because really there's no other union that matters. I mean, who cares if the plumbers union is promoting critical race theory? The only union that's going to have like a major foundational impact on the future of your society is the fucking teachers union. It's not the carpenters union. It's not the Teamsters union. It's not the fucking plumbers or welders unions. It's the teachers union. That will have the biggest impact on the future of your society. So this is
theory. And as you can see in this New York Post article, they invited the speaker Ibram X. Kendi, who is the godfather of the whole woke scene and racial justice scene, to speak at a lot of their meetings where they indoctrinate their union members in the cult of wokeness. Here's another union website showcasing their support for racial solidarity and how much they've done for the cause of black people. It's another union who's fighting for racial justice. This union, the Washington State Labor Council, has a whole toolkit on how to fight for racial equity in the workplace. The biggest union in the country, the AFL-CIO, which is a conglomeration of about 60 of the biggest unions, they're all about racial justice too.
Garrett Drulin says, I personally would not bring Martinez on your show. He's a glorified lulbert. Now, I was listening to one of his interviews with a guy on Odyssey, and it was one of his, maybe from like a month ago or so. And as I was listening to it, there was certain things that he was saying that I definitely would disagree with, and saw that he was far more leaning into sort of like a libertarian perspective, like a racist libertarian perspective on these things, basically. So we'd have things to disagree with, which I think would make for an interesting conversation. If we had a conversation, it's not like I would just softball him the whole time. I think it would be an interesting thing to have for a debate. 555 says, yes, teaching is highly effective. So why aren't DR types rushing to become teachers? That's like saying, you don't like the military going into the Middle East. Oh, well, why aren't you going to become a soldier? If you want to fight in a different country, then why don't you become a soldier? You don't. If you're becoming a soldier, you don't have control over what the military does. You just have to conform. And it's the same thing with being a teacher. If you go into teaching, if you become a certified teacher and you want to teach in a public school or even a private school, you have to conform. You don't get to just this myth. It's like a Marxist myth that people back when society was more conservative and traditional, that, oh, these renegade teachers came in and they secretly, in this like Dead Poet Society style, like fought the system from the inside. That's not really what happened. I mean, the system was taken over from the top before any of these so-called renegade teachers came in and got a foothold. It was taken in from the top, and then teachers were brought into the system to help spread the agenda at every level. It wasn't like these teachers came in without any support, without any, high-level elite support that was backing them in subverting the institution. We don't have that kind of support. So, anyway, Inventor says, not only anti-national socialist, but also anti-white Western, attacking the so-called Nordicist for not accepting Mediterraneans. By Mediterranean, he means North Africans. Interesting. I don't know these things. But Schmuck Puppet says, I quit teaching when I woke up out of my Marxist coma. And yeah, my original plan when I was in school, when I was getting my degree in philosophy, was to carry on, get a master's, possibly a PhD, and teach. Teach possibly, at the college level, at the university level, or even, community college or high school, something. I wasn't entirely sure about what my path would be, but it was to teach. That's what I wanted to do. But after 4 years in the institution, I quickly saw not only would I be facing the hierarchy of the institution that I was working under, not only was I up against them, but I was also up against my coworkers, my peers. If I were to have become a professor at a university, I'm fighting the power of the system, but I'm also fighting my peers. There's nobody around that would support or defend you if you said anything that fundamentally contradicted the status quo. You have to conform. And, theoretically, yeah, you could make it seem like you're conforming, work there for however many years, a decade, get tenure, and then once you're tenured, then you try to slip little bits of truth into your classroom. But then the reality is that you're doing that to children that are 99% unreceptive. 99% they're just going with the status quo. They're not interested in some kind of contradictory idea, or idea that is deemed racist or sexist or whatever it might be. So now you're embedded in a social milieu where you have to be a completely fake person. You're surrounded by people that actually hate you if they knew who you really were, and you hate them because you already know who they really are. You're teaching to students that would hate you if they found out what you really thought. You're working for an institution that basically hates you, and it's so there's no good outcome for trying to do something like that. You're way better off to just do like what I'm doing, which is homeschooling your children, controlling what you have power over, and connecting with like-minded people. Try to create parallel communities. Garrett says, the problem with Martinez is he basically evades debates, or what he perceives as debates, yet claims his opinions are victorious. He had the opportunity to debate Tom Sewell on economics, no follow-up. 555, yes, all true, but it is still the place to take effect. Despite curriculum, we still could identify teachers that were right-wing, and they have their effect. Yeah, but I think it'd be more effective for us to open up some kind of a private school, or to create, some kind of right-wing traditional curriculum to circulate amongst homeschooling communities, for us to create our own homeschooling communities. And, it's not just the curriculum that I don't like about the school system too. It's the entire fundamental pedagogy of how they teach children. It's the industrial factory style educational, not conveyor belt, assembly line type of a dynamic that they have in schools, where you sit there, you're forced to learn one subject, bell rings, you get up, move to another class, learn another subject. You never have time to really direct your own education. You could be in the middle of learning something that's fascinating, that you could spend the entire afternoon learning about, that you could get into a million rabbit holes on, that that you're genuinely passionate about. But as soon as that fucking bell rings, you got to go off to math class. As soon as that bell rings, boom, you got to go to whatever the next class is going to be. You got to play your recorder, play your little flute for the band. I don't like the structure of it. It's not just the content, it's the structure of it. I don't want my children to be put through that kind of a structure. 555, I would personally abolish the entire education system, return to private tuition for students. Yeah, I think that there should be more experimentation when it comes to how education works. Hung Solo, you're a DR teacher. Half your class is black/Hispanic. Talk about a non-starter. But okay, now I'm really done. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. Hope you learned a thing or two. Always good to see you all in the chat. Didymus, if you're still here, nice to see you. Everybody else, hope to see you again next time. And yeah, you guys have a good night.